Chosen one, listen carefully. Something has just shifted around you. The noise fades. The world slows. And it's as if the very air is waiting for your response. This isn't a random pause. It's divine interruption. Heaven itself has pressed pause on your timeline to speak directly into your life. For so long, you've been walking with questions echoing inside. Why does it still hurt? When will it be my turn? You've been faithful, but tired, hopeful, but weary. Yet even in that quiet ache, heaven has been watching. Every unseen tear, every hidden prayer, every maybe tomorrow whispered into the dark, none of it was wasted. Now the voice of God cuts through the noise. I'll rescue you. This moment isn't about the past. It's about response. You've got 21 minutes of grace, 21 moments for heaven and earth to align on your behalf. Imagine a great celestial clock suspended above creation. The hands, made of pure light, begin to glow brighter. Angels glance toward it, waiting for one name to be spoken, yours. When heaven said your name, time itself hesitated. The countdown began. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 46, verse 10, Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted on earth. Those ancient words still pulse with power. Stillness is not surrender, it's strength. It's the place where rescue begins. There was once a young man, a chosen one like you, who went through a season of silence. He prayed, fasted, did everything right. But heaven felt quiet. Every door stayed shut. Until one dawn, when the horizon burned gold, he heard a whisper in his heart, I never left. I was waiting for you to stop running. And that whisper became his rescue. He didn't receive an answer. He became one. You're standing in that same moment now. The divine interruption isn't punishment, it's invitation. God is saying, stop moving long enough to hear me move. The world told you to keep pushing, but heaven says, pause and receive. And look around you. Signs are starting to appear, conversations that feel too aligned to be random. Moments of unexpected peace. Little nudges to do something simple yet significant. They are not coincidences. They are coordinates guiding you toward your deliverance. Maybe you've thought, but I failed too many times. Yet heaven responds. Grace doesn't count your failures. It redeems them. Every scar you carry is not evidence of defeat. It's proof that darkness tried and failed. So when the Spirit says, I'll rescue you, understand this. Rescue doesn't always come as escape. Sometimes it comes as revelation. Sometimes the walls don't fall outward, they fall inward. Inside your heart, where fear has lived too long. Picture yourself standing in the middle of a great storm. Rain lashes your skin. The wind roars against you. Then suddenly, you notice the ground beneath you hasn't moved. The storm wasn't sent to drown you. It was sent to reveal that your foundation is stronger than you thought. This is the divine interruption. The moment where panic meets peace and realizes peace is stronger. You've been waiting for permission to rest. Heaven gives it now. You've been wondering if you're still chosen after all your mistakes. Heaven answers, yes. You've been afraid that time is slipping away. Heaven whispers, I control time. End fiction. You've got 21 minutes to respond, not with fear, not with hesitation, but with faith. Don't overthink it. Don't scroll away. Just respond. Comment 21 below if your spirit feels this call. That simple act is your signal to heaven, your yes in the midst of silence. It's not about algorithms or numbers, it's about alignment. Then, like, share, and subscribe, not for the sake of habit, but because you believe someone else needs to hear what you just heard. Maybe your obedience is the key to their rescue. The interruption is real. The clock is ticking. Heaven waits for your answer. Heaven is leaning closer now, watching for your movement. This isn't about performance, it's about presence. When you lift your heart, even slightly, heaven notices. Every act of faith, even the smallest yes, creates ripples that echo through eternity. Time, for a moment, bends in your favor. The 21 minutes aren't meant to scare you, they're meant to awaken you. Something divine has already started shifting within the unseen. Rescue is no longer on its way, it's already here. Wrapping around your life like unseen light. Chosen one. Breathe. Stand still. Your response right now determines the rhythm of your breakthrough. This is your holy pause. Step into it with courage. The air feels different now. A stillness has settled. Yet within it hums a quiet urgency like the final heartbeat before a dawn you've waited your whole life to see. You sense something invisible aligning, as if heaven itself is counting each breath you take. The countdown has begun. 21 minutes. It isn't about time measured by clocks. It's about a window of mercy measured by obedience. Each moment is sacred, stretching between what you were and what you are becoming. Somewhere deep within, you know, this is not just another day. It's the threshold. The book of James, chapter 4, verse 14, says, "What is your life? You are a mist, appearing for a moment, then vanishing away." That verse isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to awaken you. It reminds you that every choice, every pause, every whisper of surrender matters. Eternity can be shaped in a single decision. You've lived long enough to understand how fleeting time can be. You've watched seasons change while your dreams waited patiently in the background. You've seen doors open for others while yours stayed shut, wondering if maybe you missed your turn. But here's the truth, you didn't miss anything. The delay was design. Heaven was synchronizing your steps with divine timing. Sometimes what feels like waiting is actually weaving. God has been threading purpose into every loose strand of your story, creating something you couldn't see yet. There was once a woman, let's call her Mara, whose life felt like an unfinished sentence. She had prayed, worked, loved, and still found herself standing in the ruins of unfulfilled hope. But one evening, as she sat alone in her small kitchen, she felt a gentle pull to write down the dreams she had buried. As her pen touched paper, a strange calm filled the room. She wrote not what she had lost, but what she still believed could live again. That night, she unknowingly stepped into her 21 minutes. Not a literal countdown, but a spiritual window. Within weeks, unexpected doors opened. People she hadn't spoken to in years reached out. The job she thought she lost led her to her calling. And when she looked back, she realized something profound. God didn't change her circumstances first. He changed her perspective. You're in that same space now, the sacred bend between waiting and walking. The countdown isn't about punishment, it's about preparation. Heaven is moving in real time, but you must learn to move with it. There's a rhythm to divine rescue. It begins in stillness, grows through obedience, and culminates in revelation. Right now, you are somewhere between stillness and obedience. The test is subtle. Will you stay open when everything inside you wants to shut down? Imagine a seed buried in soil. For weeks, nothing seems to happen. But deep beneath the dirt, roots are forming, stretching toward unseen water. Then one day, the soil cracks, and life bursts forth. That's what your countdown looks like from heaven's view, a divine germination. Don't despise the quiet moments. They are not the absence of movement, they are the womb of miracles. If you could see the unseen right now, you'd notice angels stationed around you, silent, watchful, ready to act. The moment heaven gives the word, you'd see your name glowing like gold in the book of life, outlined by promises that haven't expired. You may not hear trumpets, but make no mistake, the clock is ticking in your spirit. Each second that passes is heaven's heartbeat, reminding you rescue is already in motion. Sometimes the countdown feels uncomfortable. Old habits surface. Old fears whisper. The temptation to return to what's familiar becomes strong. That's the test of faith in its purest form, trusting that the unseen is stronger than the seen. If you could freeze this exact moment and look at it from heaven's perspective, you'd see a brilliant convergence. Past pain, présent surendé, and future purpose are all meeting right here. The countdown isn't racing against you, it's racing for you. It's pushing you into alignment with what God has already written. Breathe deeply. The next few minutes of your journey are not meant to be rushed. They are meant to be realized. The divine clock is not here to scare you. It's to remind you that time under heaven's hand is sacred. You are not running out. You are being drawn in. And when your spirit begins to tremble at the thought of change, remember, trembling is often the first sign of transformation. So let the countdown continue, not with panic, but with purpose. Heaven's seconds are different from Earth's. They stretch long enough for miracles to form, yet swift enough to pull you into destiny. Somewhere in those remaining minutes, something unseen has already been decided. Your rescue isn't a question, it's a countdown to manifestation. The darkness remembers your name. It's the place you once lived, crying out in silence, searching for God between the seconds of heartbreak. You've walked through that valley long enough to know its shape by memory, the late-night thoughts, the quiet panic at dawn, the weight of unanswered prayers pressing on your chest. Yet even there, light began to move toward you. You didn't notice at first. It came softly, like a flicker under a closed door, whispering that rescue was already on its way. There's something sacred about a cry in the dark. It's the rawest language of the soul. It doesn't have perfect words or beautiful rhythm. It's made of gasps and questions. Heaven calls it truth, because when you cry, you are saying, "I still believe you can hear me." The ancient writings remind us in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 24. "And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it." No, that was Joseph's valley, the moment when every dream seemed drowned. But even there, his name was not forgotten. God was writing a rescue into the pit. The empty space that once echoed with despair would soon hold the sound of promotion. Chosen one. That's your story too. The pit wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You thought you were buried, but heaven says you were planted. There's a difference. Burial ends a thing. Planting begins it. You may not see it yet, but your roots have been growing in places no one applauds. You've been developing in silence while others bloomed in public. Yet when your time comes, and it's coming, you will rise with fruit that lasts. I remember a woman who once told me she used to pray at 3 a.m. because she couldn't sleep. The silence of night was her only companion. For months, she saw no change. But one night, she heard a thought whisper, "Don't stop." It wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. That same week, something began to turn. Relationships mended. Her health improved. Her sense of purpose reignited. She realized the darkness wasn't proof of absence, it was the stage for resurrection. That's what happens when a cry becomes an invitation. Heaven doesn't rush in with noise. It enters like dawn, quiet, certain, unstoppable. Maybe your cry hasn't been with words lately. Maybe it's been through endurance, showing up one more day when you wanted to quit. That counts. Heaven counts every breath of that kind of faith. You've been fighting battles nobody knows about, but you've also been winning victories nobody sees. There's a sacred beauty in that unseen faithfulness. You have no audience but God. Yet you still choose light. You still choose prayer. You still choose hope. That's the kind of faith that terrifies darkness. It's steady. It's pure. It's unbreakable. Sometimes deliverance doesn't look like chains snapping. It looks like you refusing to give up while still in chains. That's when heaven starts to move, when your cry becomes courage. And as that courage rises, something begins to unfold in the spirit. The air changes. The pit loses its power. The chains lose their grip. You begin to realize the truth. Darkness doesn't have ownership. It only rents space until light arrives. If you've ever wondered why your rescue took so long, maybe it's because the foundation being built in you was meant to carry something larger than you imagined. God doesn't construct small lives. He constructs eternal legacies. So, take a moment now, right where you are, and feel this. Your cry has already reached the throne. The angels have already received their command. The rescue you prayed for in tears is already moving toward you in light. And now, you must respond, not with fear, but with faith. Comment, "Light wins" below. Do it as your declaration, not as routine. It's not just words, it's a prophetic response. A symbolic act that says, even if I don't see it yet, I choose light over the pit. And because that's the secret heaven keeps revealing to its chosen ones, light always wins. Always. Comment, "Light wins." Then do it with intention. This isn't a slogan, it's a spiritual stance. Every time you speak those two words, you remind the unseen realms that you've chosen your side. You declare that darkness no longer writes your ending. You are saying, "My story belongs to light now." When you type it, imagine the words glowing like embers across your screen, each letter igniting a spark of faith. Heaven doesn't measure eloquence, it measures obedience. One simple act, one comment of truth, can shift your entire atmosphere. So, let your words become your weapon. Let light winds echo through your home, your mind, your future. The pit can't hold a heart that keeps declaring victory. Speak it and watch heaven move. There is a certain heaviness that follows delay. It doesn't always announce itself loudly. It seeps in quietly, like fog slipping under a closed door. One day you wake up and realize you've been waiting for something so long that you forgot what movement even feels like. The heart grows heavy, and time feels like an enemy instead of a teacher. But heaven sees the weight of waiting. Nothing you've endured has gone unnoticed. The divine record is not written only in victories, but also in every sigh that escaped your lips when nobody was there to listen. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 12, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. That ancient truth still breathes today. Delay has the power to test your heart, but it also has the power to deepen it. It stretches your faith until it can hold what you once prayed for. Chosen one, your life has not been stuck. It has been marinating in preparation. Every not yet from heaven carried mercy in disguise. You were being refined, not rejected. You were being trained, not trapped. Think of an archer drawing back a bow. The more tension, the farther the arrow will fly. The delay you felt wasn't pulling you backward, it was preparing momentum. Heaven was stretching you only to launch you. There was once a man who spent years building a boat under a clear sky. People laughed at him, mocked his faith, questioned his sanity. Yet he kept building, not because he saw rain, but because he trusted the one who promised it. When the flood came, the laughter stopped, and the ark began to rise. That's what divine delay feels like, building in silence for a rain no one else believes will fall. But when it does, when the heavens finally open, every plank of obedience you've built will lift you above what once drowned others. There's a rhythm to waiting that only heaven understands. It's not wasted time, it's woven time. God doesn't measure waiting by minutes. He measures it by maturity. You've been standing in a hallway of closed doors, wondering if you knocked on the wrong one. But what if every locked door wasn't rejection, but redirection? What if heaven was protecting you from an entry that wasn't built to hold your destiny? Sometimes the worst thing God could do is give you what you're not ready to sustain. So he waits. And in the waiting, he strengthens your spine, heals your wounds, and rebuilds your identity so that when the door finally opens, you walk through it whole, not half restored, not half sure, but fully alive. The chains of delay are not forged from time, they're forged from doubt. The enemy whispers, "It's too late," hoping you'll forget that the creator of time cannot be late. There's something poetic about heaven's timing. The very moment you think you've been forgotten is usually the second before the miracle unfolds. God tends to arrive in the narrowest gap between despair and surrender. It's in that tension, when you've done all you can, that grace steps in and says, "Now let me." That, if you listen closely, you might even feel it happening now. That quiet shift inside you, that strange peace rising where anxiety used to sit. That's not coincidence, it's confirmation. Heaven is loosening what once held you still. Don't despise the pace of divine timing. The slowness you feel is sacred. It's teaching you trust. Think of a tree that grows near a cliff. Its roots must press deep into rock to stay steady. The deeper it goes, the stronger it stands against future storms. That's what God is doing in you, rooting you deep so that when elevation comes, stability remains. If only you could see your future from heaven's view, you'd understand why the waiting had to take this long. You'd see the intricate threads connecting people, places, and opportunities that haven't yet arrived but are already being aligned. The delay has not been a denial. It has been divine choreography. So, exhale. Let the fog lift. You haven't missed your moment. It's moving toward you. Even now, the chains that once defined you are breaking link by link. And when the sound of metal finally hits the floor, you'll realize time was never your captor. It was your classroom. The weight was never wasted. It was holy. Every second of silence was shaping your strength. Every unanswered prayer was carving out deeper faith. You were not being delayed. You were being developed. And when heaven finally says, "Now," the speed of your rise will make every slow season suddenly make sense. There's a sound rising in the distance, a vibration that feels like thunder wrapped in melody. It isn't the noise of the world. It's the call of heaven, summoning those who have been silent too long. You feel it in your bones before you even understand it. It's not demanding. It's inviting, like the gentle pull of the tide, drawing you back to shore. This is the sound of summoning. When heaven calls, it doesn't shout, it harmonizes. It finds the frequency of your pain and transforms it into purpose. Every note carries a whisper. You are seen. You are needed. You are chosen. The command recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, declares, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Those words are more than comfort. They are commission. God isn't just telling you to be strong. He's awakening the strength already buried within you, somewhere deep down. You've always known you were meant to stand out, not to be praised, but to be positioned. Every time life broke your rhythm, it was heaven tuning your soul to a higher song. Every heartbreak, every loss, every silence, it wasn't rejection. It was resonance. Heaven was preparing your frequency to match the sound of calling. Imagine standing in a great field at dawn. Mist curls over the grass, and the horizon blushes gold. You can feel something moving in the atmosphere, like the moment before a storm. When the air grows thick and holy, suddenly, you hear it, a sound that doesn't come from the earth, but from above. It vibrates through your chest, filling every hollow place with light. You realize the sound isn't outside you, it's inside you. It's been there all along. The summoning of God isn't external, it's internal. It's the voice that rises from within when everything else tells you to stay down. It's the whisper that says, "Get up one more time." Awfully, you've heard it before. Maybe through a song that made you cry for reasons you couldn't explain. Maybe through a stranger's kindness that felt strangely familiar. Maybe through a moment when the world fell silent and your heart simply knew, this is not the end. Awfully, the call doesn't always come wrapped in lightning. Sometimes it arrives as still water, reflecting who you were always meant to be. And when it comes, your spirit recognizes it instantly, like a forgotten melody finally remembered. But here's the mystery of the summoning. God doesn't just call you to himself, he calls you through others. Every story shared, every word spoken in truth becomes a spark in someone else's darkness. The divine call echoes from one heart to another until the entire sky hums with the sound of awakening. That's why your response matters, not as obligation, but as resonance. When you answer the call, you add your note to heaven's song. Maybe that's what this moment really is, not a sermon, but a symphony. You are hearing your own spirit's harmony, in the words passing through this screen. So, when you feel your chest tighten, when the tears come unexpectedly, when hope starts to burn again, don't silence it. That's heaven tuning your soul. You've reached the part of your journey where listening becomes participation. You are no longer a bystander to your calling. You are becoming its echo. And maybe, just maybe, this is what it means to like a message of light, to let it touch you, to let it live inside you until it changes the way you see yourself. Maybe this is what it means to share, not to press a button, but to carry the essence of this word into your conversations, your choices, your kindness, like a candle, lighting another candle, spreading warmth through unseen corridors of hearts. And perhaps subscribing isn't about staying connected to a channel, it's about staying connected to your calling. It's saying yes again and again. Even when the music fades and the world gets loud, it's a sacred gesture that says, I will keep listening to the sound that made me alive again. So, let the sound wash over you. Let it fill the empty rooms of your heart. Let it remind you that your response doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be real. Because when heaven calls your name, even silence becomes worship. And the simple act of opening your heart becomes the most beautiful yes you'll ever give. There comes a moment when pain stops being random and starts making sense. When all the shattered pieces of your story begin to arrange themselves into a design you could never have drawn on your own. This is that moment, the breaking point. The Spirit doesn't waste what breaks you, it rebuilds you from the cracks. You've been walking through a season that felt like endings, but heaven whispers it was construction all along. What looked like collapse was simply foundation work for what's about to rise. It is written in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verse 20. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. Oh, that's the Father's heart toward you. Even while you were still far off, even while you were stumbling, doubting, or pretending you were fine, he was running toward you. Rescue was never delayed, it was descending. The breaking point is sacred. It's the place where surrender becomes strategy, where tears become tools in the hands of God. You thought your pain was disqualifying you, but heaven says it's refining you. Think of a diamond before it gleams. It begins as coal, dark, hidden, ordinary, but when crushed by pressure, its carbon transforms under intense fire. What once looked useless begins to shine. You are that diamond in process. Every weight that pressed you wasn't meant to bury you, it was meant to reveal your brilliance. There's a story whispered in the unseen about a chosen one who carried heartbreak like armor. Every betrayal, every rejection turned to steel around their heart until love could no longer reach them. Then came the breaking, an unexpected loss. A disappointment so deep, it cracked the walls they'd built. At first, they thought it was destruction. But in time, light began to leak through the cracks. It wasn't ruin, it was revelation. The walls weren't protecting them, they were blocking grace. Your breaking point is your doorway. It's where you stop fighting to prove you're unbreakable and start allowing heaven to make you unshakable. Maybe that's why you've felt stretched beyond what you can bear. Because heaven knows you're ready for expansion. You can't carry glory in clenched fists. You have to open your hands, even if they tremble. Sometimes you don't realize how much faith you have until faith is all you have left. You've been there awake in the early hours, your mind heavy with what ifs, your heart whispering, God, I can't do this anymore. But somehow, you kept breathing. That was grace moving your lungs when your strength ran out. That was heaven holding you together while everything else fell apart. And now, standing here, in this divine interruption, you begin to see that what broke you didn't win it, built you. You're no longer the same person who entered that fire. You've been tempered, like a sword drawn from flame, sharper, stronger, radiant with purpose. It's okay if your voice shakes. It's okay if you're still healing. Heaven isn't looking for perfect, it's looking for willing. Take a moment and remember, every mountain you thought would crush you has become your testimony. Every heartbreak has become a bridge for someone else's healing. You've become a living message that says, grace works. There's beauty in your survival. But there's even greater beauty in your surrender. When you stop trying to fix what only faith can heal, heaven moves. Right now, even as you read this, the atmosphere around you is shifting. You may not see it, but the Spirit is aligning people, timing, and opportunities that fit the version of you that's emerging. The broken version of you can't carry what's coming, but the healed one can. This is the season where heaven trades ashes for beauty, where the Father who ran toward the prodigal also runs toward you, not with judgment, but with joy. He's not asking where you've been. He's saying, welcome home. And when heaven welcomes you home, the fire that once hurt you becomes the light that guides you. So here, at your breaking point, something is being reborn. Not just hope, but identity. The weight is lifting. The fire is cooling. The ashes are forming into something new. And now, heaven invites you to mark this moment, to seal it not with fear, but with faith. Comment, 550 וחמש below. It's not superstition, it's symbolism. 3 5s, grace upon grace upon grace. When you type it, you're not typing a number, you're testifying. You're saying, even in my breaking, grace still wins. End of G. Let this be your quiet declaration that what tried to destroy you has only revealed how divinely protected you truly are. Because the breaking point isn't your ending, chosen one. It's the sound of heaven making room for your beginning. There are movements in the unseen right now, whispers that echo between dimensions, ripples that shift the atmosphere without ever making a sound. You can't see it, but heaven is busy. The moment you said yes, angels were dispatched. Assignments were activated. The blueprint of your rescue began unfolding in real time. The Word of God declares in the book of Hebrews, chapter 1, verse 14, are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? That's what's happening around you now. Heaven's army moves not with fanfare, but with precision. When God speaks rescue, it's not a poetic thought, it's a military command. Legions align, time bends, and creation itself rearranges to fulfill the word He spoke over you. You've always felt that something larger was moving through your life. Even in still moments, you've sensed a hum beneath your skin, an invisible current pulling you toward destiny. That's the rhythm of the divine realm intersecting with yours. Think of it like the wind. You can't see where it begins or ends, but you can feel its fingerprints, rustling trees, rippling water. the sudden coolness that makes your spirit shiver. That's how heaven's movements touch your world. They don't always announce themselves, but they leave evidence everywhere. There's a story that angels tell about how they stand guard over those who are about to awaken. They say their wings tremble slightly when a human heart finally opens to purpose, because they know what comes next, an avalanche of miracles triggered by one act of belief. Right now, your belief is doing more than you realize. It's authorizing heaven to act. Faith is the legal language of the spirit realm. When you trust, you give permission for divine order to override chaos. You may not hear the commands being spoken, but heaven does. If you could glimpse the scene above you now, you'd see motion, brilliant flashes of light moving like comets across the dark. Angels, each carrying assignments crafted for your restoration. Some are guiding conversations that will lead to open doors. Others are pushing away people who cannot go where you're going. Some are simply standing near you, holding back waves you'll never even know were coming. You've survived attacks that never reached you. You've been protected from words that were never spoken aloud. You've been shielded by prayers you didn't even know were prayed. This is divine architecture at work, the kind of order that makes chaos look accidental. There was once a man who walked through the desert without knowing angels walked beside him. Exhausted, he fell beneath a tree and said, "It's enough, Lord." But instead of death, he received bread and water from an unseen hand. He rose and journeyed again. That man was Elijah, and his story still speaks. Heaven feeds those who think they are finished. The same is true for you. You have been fed by invisible hands in unseen hours. Every time strength came from nowhere. Every time peace replaced panic. Every time you woke with courage you didn't earn, that was heaven's touch. You are surrounded, even in solitude. Angels stand where logic ends. When the path ahead looks fogged and uncertain, remember this: you are not walking alone. Every step you take on earth echoes in heaven, and heaven responds. You move, and the spirit world adjusts. You speak faith, and the atmosphere obeys. You lift your head in defiance of despair, and angels rise beside you. It may not feel like a battle, but it is. You are walking through an invisible war where light keeps winning. Every breath of hope you choose is a victory. Every moment you refuse to go back is a banner of triumph lifted before unseen hosts. The rescue isn't coming from outside, it's rising from within. Angels can clear the path, but it's your faith that walks it. They can open doors, but it's your courage that steps through. So, move gently today, knowing that every second you remain in faith. Heaven is working. Don't rush the process. Let the unseen complete its work. When morning light touches your skin, know that somewhere in the invisible, wings have already moved. And when you feel peace for no reason, that's heaven's signature, confirming the rescue is underway. Sometimes divine activity hides behind ordinary moments, the text you didn't expect, the delay that saved you, the silence that steadied you. These are not coincidences. They are coded messages written in the language of mercy. Heaven is speaking, just not in noise. So, when nothing seems to move, remember, stillness is not absence. The angels haven't stopped. They're simply working in whispers. Wait. The unseen is finishing what faith began. Obedience has always been the thin line between wandering and walking in destiny. It sounds simple. Do what God says. But in reality, It's the greatest test of trust a human heart will ever face. Because obedience rarely makes sense when you're standing inside the storm. It asks you to move while you're still blind, to speak when you still doubt, to believe before you ever see. The book of Romans, chapter 4, verse 20, records, "He did not waver through unbelief regarding the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God." That verse speaks of Abraham, a man who obeyed before the evidence existed. He left home without a map, believed in a child before conception, and counted stars when the sky looked empty. Faith made him foolish in the eyes of the world, but obedience made him a friend of God. You stand now where he once stood on the edge of instruction. God doesn't give you all the details, because obedience must be relational, not mechanical. It's not about completing tasks, it's about trusting the voice. Every chosen one eventually comes to a moment like this, the moment when heaven's command feels impossible. It won't look grand. It might be a small whisper asking you to let go of something you've held too tightly, or to forgive the one who doesn't deserve it, or to walk away from a place that no longer honors your purpose. And it's here, in this quiet tension, that obedience becomes sacred. It's not about perfection, it's about posture. The heart that says, even if I don't understand, I'll still obey. 1. There's a story of a young man who felt led to move to a city he'd never visited. He had no savings, no plan, only a whisper that kept repeating, "Go." Everyone around him called it reckless. Yet, in that city, he met people who became family, found work that restored his dignity, and discovered a calling that had waited years for his arrival. Later, he said, "If I had waited for logic, I would have missed the miracle." That's what obedience does. It moves miracles into motion. But obedience doesn't come without resistance. The enemy doesn't fear your talent. He fears your obedience. Because obedience unlocks authority. Once you start walking in what God told you to do, darkness loses its ability to distract you. Think of it like a compass inside your spirit. Even when storms spin you in circles, obedience reorients you toward purpose. It doesn't erase fear, it outruns it. You might not realize it, but each step you take in obedience writes a prophecy into motion. Angels adjust positions. People you haven't met yet begin to move toward you. Even creation starts to cooperate. Heaven doesn't bless hesitation, it blesses movement. There's an old metaphor in Jewish tradition when the priests carried the Ark of the Covenant toward the Jordan River. The water didn't part until their feet touched it. The miracle waited for obedience. Had they stopped at the edge, they would have missed what was promised. You may be standing at your own Jordan right now, the edge of something bigger than you. You can't see what's on the other side. But faith never promised visibility, it promised presence. The same voice that called you here will carry you through. Sometimes obedience feels lonely because few can hear what you hear. But heaven counts those moments as worship. The silence between command and fulfillment is sacred space. It's where trust matures, where faith becomes sight. And yes, there will be days when obedience feels like loss, when saying yes means walking away from what's comfortable. But remember, God never takes something without giving something greater. The surrender you give today becomes the stability you stand on tomorrow. If only you could see what obedience builds in the spirit. Invisible altars of trust that rise like mountains in heaven. Each act of faith becomes a monument that testifies, They believed. So, listen for the next instruction. It might come softly, without drama, but when it does, treat it as treasure. Every whisper of direction carries a harvest attached to it. The test of obedience will never leave your life. It evolves with you. What was once about action will later be about alignment. The higher you rise, the quieter the commands become, but the reward, deeper peace, stronger clarity, and a walk so anchored that storms can't move it. Obedience is not control, it's collaboration with heaven. It's the language of trust. And when you speak it fluently, miracles stop feeling like surprises. They start feeling like confirmations. You are not behind, and you are not lost. You are exactly where obedience led you. The night always fights hardest just before dawn. You've felt it, the resistance that rises when you decide to obey. The strange heaviness that comes when you start to move toward freedom. That's not coincidence. It's retaliation. The enemy always attacks what he can no longer control. The book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 13. Declares, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may stand firm and remain standing. That is the call now, to stand. Not to argue, not to explain, simply to stand unmoved by the noise, unshaken by the shadows. The closer you get to breakthrough, the louder the battle becomes. The darkness knows its time is short, so it launches its last attempt, a storm of confusion, distraction, and fear meant to pull you back into what you've already been delivered from. You've probably noticed it lately, old insecurities resurfacing, unexpected tension rising. People you thought were at peace suddenly turning against you. Don't misread the signs. This isn't regression, it's revelation. Heaven is showing you what can't cross with you into the next chapter. There's a reason God doesn't end every storm instantly. Some storms aren't meant to destroy you. They're meant to expose what's anchored. Only through resistance can you see which parts of your soul still lean on sand instead of stone. Remember Peter on the water. His faith carried him until fear distracted him. That's always the tactic. Fear doesn't need to sink you. It just needs to break your focus. The enemy can't steal what's yours. He can only tempt you to stop reaching for it. But there's a power in you that fear can't understand. Every time you stand again after falling, light expands its territory. Every time you speak truth in the middle of lies, heaven advances. Every no to darkness becomes a yes to destiny. You're not fighting for victory. You're fighting from victory. The war has already been won. This battle is just your training ground in authority. There was a soldier of faith once. Let's call him Eli, who spent years feeling attacked in every direction. Just when he thought peace had come, another crisis hit. One night, exhausted, he whispered, "God, why does it never stop?" And he felt the Spirit respond, "Because you were born to command storms, not avoid them." Ends. That changed everything. The attacks didn't stop, but Eli stopped seeing them as punishment. He began to recognize them as opportunities to practice power. That's the transformation happening inside you now. You're learning to command, not complain, to discern, not despair, to resist, not retreat. Every battle is a lesson in dominion. If you could see what's really happening in the unseen, you'd understand why the pressure feels this heavy. The enemy wouldn't be this loud if you weren't this close. The weight proves the worth of what's coming. So when the darkness whispers, you're still the same. Answer with silence. You don't have to convince the shadows of your growth. The light within you will do that by itself. Sometimes, spiritual warfare feels like standing in rain with no umbrella, uncomfortable, uncertain. But even then, the rain cleanses. It washes away what's been hiding in the dust. You may be standing in a storm, but that storm is sanctifying you. And here's the hidden truth. Every attack leaves you stronger than before. Every scar becomes a signal of survival that darkness can no longer deny. So tonight, if you feel the pressure rising, don't panic. It's confirmation. The enemy's desperation means your deliverance is near. Lift your head. Breathe deep. Let heaven remind you what's chasing you can't overtake you. And now, take a step of faith. Seal this truth with your declaration. Comment, "I still stand." Do it not as defiance, but as agreement. It's your way of saying, I choose faith over fear. Those 3 words are armor. They tell heaven you're aligned and tell darkness you're unavailable. Because sometimes, standing is the loudest form of worship. When you comment, "I still stand," you are not typing out of routine. You're signing a declaration in the spirit. You're saying, I refuse to bow to fear, to confusion, to the weight that tried to silence me. Those words reach beyond the screen. They become sound waves heaven recognizes. Every syllable carry defiance against despair. When you write it, imagine it echoing across your atmosphere, walls trembling, shadows retreating, angels standing taller around you. You are not just surviving, you are announcing that survival has become your strength. Let this be your mark. Let this moment say forever, you stood, and standing became your song. There's a hush that falls after battle, the kind of silence that feels alive, as if the air itself is breathing again. You've made it through the storm. You've stood when everything in you said fall. And now, there's a shift, not loud, not dramatic, but unmistakable. It's the quiet pulse of promise fulfilled. This is what covenant feels like. Not a contract signed in ink, but an agreement written in spirit. Between you and God, between your brokenness and His faithfulness. In the book of Hosea, chapter 2, verse 19, it is written, I will betroth you to me forever in righteousness, in justice and in love, in compassion éternelle. Those words aren't distant history, they are present reality. Covenant isn't about ceremony, it's about consistency. It's heaven whispering. Even when you wander, I still call you mine. No, you've spent so long fighting to stay afloat that you forgot what peace sounds like. But listen now, it's here. In the smallness, in the ordinary, in the way your breath no longer shakes when you exhale. That's not coincidence, that's covenant breathing inside you. God never wanted performance, He wanted partnership. The covenant doesn't demand perfection, it invites closeness. And when you step into that closeness, your life becomes a living signature of grace. Imagine it like this. You're standing on a quiet beach after a storm. The waves, once violent, now roll gently to your feet. The sky has cleared, washed clean by lightning. You can see your reflection in the calm water, tired, scarred, but radiant. That's what covenant looks like. Not untouched, but transformed. There's something sacred about a promise that holds even when you don't. That's what separates covenant from contract. A contract breaks when one party fails. A covenant bends until restoration arrives. You've been carried by a promise that refused to let go of you. You may not have realized it, but every time you doubted, heaven still believed in you. Every time you fell, mercy reached first. Every time you tried to leave, love followed quietly behind you until you turned around. That's covenant. That's the kind of love that doesn't flinch at your humanity. And now, you're invited to live differently, not striving, but settled, not earning, but embracing. This isn't about being perfect for God. It's about being present with Him. There's a reason the stars still burn after centuries. They were created under covenantal light. They shine not because they're flawless, but because they remain faithful to their design. You were made under that same light. You were created to remain steady in your orbit around divine love. You don't have to chase favor anymore. You are already standing in it. The covenant has your name written in eternity's handwriting, and the ink, it's mercy. It doesn't fade. Sometimes, people mistake covenant for confinement, but this isn't a cage, it's a covering. It's the hand of God, cupped gently over your life, shielding you from storms you never knew existed. You've survived not because you're lucky, but because you're covered. And that's why what you carry matters. Your story, your scars, your steady breath, they're all evidence that covenant works. So when you move from this moment, let your life echo what heaven has already sealed. You are bound not by fear, but by faithfulness. And maybe, just maybe, this is what it truly means to pause and honor the moment where heaven's hand met your heart, not as routine, but as reverence. Maybe this is what it means to share, to pour this quiet revelation into someone else's emptiness, not to impress, but to illuminate, like passing a candle in the dark, flame to flame, heart to heart. And perhaps this is what it means to subscribe, to stay committed to the journey, to the voice, to the flow of truth that keeps reshaping your soul. It's a soft vow that says, I want to keep walking in the light that found me. None of it is forced. None of it is demanded. It's simply the natural response of a heart that's finally at rest. Because when you've been rescued this completely, gratitude becomes your instinct. And gratitude, when it breathes, sounds a lot like worship. So take this stillness with you. Let it follow you into every conversation, every room, every restless thought. The covenant doesn't stay in temples or on screens. It travels in you. Wherever you go, heaven's promise goes too. And when gratitude wells up without warning, don't suppress it. Let it flow. Let it rise in words, in kindness, in the way you love others. Because that, too, is covenant alive, breathing, and beautifully human. Fire has always been both threat and teacher. It consumes, but it also refines. What it touches can burn or become brilliant. And now, as your story unfolds, you begin to understand that every flame you've walked through wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to define you. The scripture written in the book of Zechariah, chapter 13, verse 9, declares, This third I will put into the fire. I will refine them like silver and test them like gold. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, They are my people. And they will say, The Lord is our God. That's not just prophecy, it's process. Refinement is the proof of belonging. Those God intends to trust with greater purpose, He first allows to pass through fire. It's never punishment, it's preparation. You've been through enough heat to know the difference between destruction and purification. In the early days, the pain felt unbearable, like every step scorched your spirit. You asked why God didn't stop it. But He wasn't standing apart from the fire, He was inside it with you, controlling its temperature so that it only burned away what could not stay. Like gold in the furnace, you were being shaped for weight, not wasted in suffering. What melted away were fear, pride, and the illusions that once defined your worth. There was once a craftsman who worked with silver. Someone asked him how he knew when the metal was ready. He smiled and said, "When I can see my reflection in it." That's what the refiner's fire does. It burns until the reflection of heaven can be seen in your life. And maybe that's what's happening to you now. The reflection is becoming clearer. You're starting to recognize the divine image in your scars, in your persistence, in your quiet strength. Fire doesn't just change your shape, it changes your glow. You don't come out looking the same, you come out shining. When you were in the middle of the furnace, you couldn't see the transformation. All you saw was smoke. But transformation often looks like confusion before it looks like clarity. Look back now. The moments you thought would end you have actually enlarged you. The betrayals that broke you became the soil where wisdom grew. The losses that left you empty made room for a deeper kind of fullness. Even your silence has been sacred. It taught you to listen differently. The way you trust now, the way you discern now, the way you forgive it all carries the fragrance of fire refined by grace. You are not fragile anymore. You are tempered, like steel drawn from flame. Your softness remains, but your core has changed. You no longer bend to fear the way you once did. You no longer confuse peace with passivity. You've learned that gentleness can coexist with strength, and surrender can coexist with authority. And now, you stand radiant, not because you avoided the fire, but because you walked through it. There's something remarkable about how fire transforms perspective. Once, you feared endings. Now, you see them as beginnings. Once, you resisted pain. Now, you recognize it as the doorway through which purpose enters. You've reached the stage where gratitude begins to grow, where grief once lived. The flames that hurt you have become light that guides you. What once was loss has turned into lesson. The fire has not only refined your character, it has purified your vision. You see differently now. You recognize divine fingerprints in ordinary places. You sense timing instead of coincidence. You perceive alignment where you once saw accident. This is the fruit of refinement, clear sight, quiet confidence, and a peace that no longer depends on perfect conditions. When others look at you, they'll see resilience, but heaven sees reflection. You are mirroring divine endurance, the strength that bends but never breaks, the hope that flickers but never fades. The fire didn't steal anything that belonged to you. It removed what blocked you from seeing what was already yours. And now, even in calm seasons, you'll carry a heat that doesn't fade, a spiritual warmth that comforts others. The way light comforts shadow. You'll speak from scars instead of theories. You'll teach from transformation instead of information. You've become living evidence that what walks into the fire by grace walks out as gold. The world will sense it before you speak it. the quiet glow that follows those who've endured holy fire. It isn't pride, it's peace. It's the aura of someone who knows what was meant for ashes has turned into light. Carry that glow gently. Let it heal rooms before your words do. You're proof that refinement is radiant. There comes a sacred turning point in every divine story, a moment when the ashes you once mourned begin to shimmer with beauty. You've reached that threshold now. What you lost no longer feels like loss, it feels like exchange. The old weight is lifting, and in its place, heaven is clothing you with meaning. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That is the promise of transformation, beauty for ashes, joy for sorrow, renewal for ruin. Heaven doesn't return what was lost, it replaces it with something eternal. You've carried pain like a garment for so long that comfort almost felt unfamiliar. But now, something within you is changing. The air around you feels lighter, your thoughts clearer. You're realizing that what you thought broke you actually built you into someone new, someone who sees with heaven's eyes. This is the prophetic exchange. It's the moment when you stop asking why and start declaring what now. When grief turns from weight into wisdom, when scars turn into symbols of victory. Once, your prayers sounded like pleading. Now, they sound like peace. That's how you know the exchange has begun. Heaven has touched the transaction, and your heart is the altar. I once heard the story of a woman who lost everything she loved within a single season. Home, job, health gone. She wept until her voice broke. Then one morning, she stood outside, watching the sunrise. The sky was streaked in crimson and gold, and she whispered, "You still paint." That simple sentence became her new beginning. Within months, doors she never imagined opened. She didn't get back what she lost, she received what she'd been created for. That's what heaven is doing in you. The ashes of your former season are being used as ink for your next chapter. What looked like ruin was actually restoration in disguise. You may not see all of it yet, but the evidence is growing. The way peace returns faster now. The way your laughter no longer feels borrowed. The way gratitude finds you, even on quiet days. These are all signs that exchange is happening. The divine economy never leaves you in deficit. When heaven restores, it multiplies. There's something poetic about how God transforms endings. When He rebuilds, He uses fragments. The pieces of your pain become mosaic patterns of glory. Every tear you thought was wasted has turned into a drop of color on the masterpiece of your becoming. You were never meant to stay covered in ashes. They served their purpose to remind you of what died. But now the Spirit says, "Rise, dust yourself off. The mourning season has ended." Oh, look closely at your life. Can you see it? The small, almost invisible traces of renewal, the conversations that breathe hope, the ideas that come alive again, the peace that doesn't need proof. That's heaven's exchange rate. Sorrow traded for strength, waiting traded for wonder. And though your heart may still remember the fire, it no longer fears it, because you've learned what only the refined can know. Ashes aren't the end, they're the beginning of beauty's birth. You are stepping into a realm where joy doesn't need permission to exist. It just does. The oil of gladness is dripping over your story now. Soft, and golden, seeping into every place grief once lived. The fragrance of it will begin to follow you. Others will feel peace near you without understanding why. You'll walk into rooms and bring calm without speaking a word. This is the exchange in motion, the restoration of radiance, and heaven, watching, smiles, because this was always the plan. The pain was never random. It was the forge for the light you now carry. But this kind of beauty asks for response, not to prove anything, but to seal the moment. Heaven loves acknowledgement. It's how the Spirit says, "I agree." Oh, so now, with quiet conviction, take part in this exchange. Comment 333 below. Do it as your signature of agreement, not superstition. 3 symbol of divine fullness: Father, Son, Spirit. It represents wholeness, restoration, and completion. When you type it, you're saying, "I accept the new, I release the old." And let that number be your yes in the unseen realm. Your testimony that the ashes have served their purpose and beauty has taken their place. Because this isn't just restoration, it's resurrection. And your story, once wrapped in mourning, is about to bloom in gold. Identity is the first thing darkness tries to steal, and the last thing heaven restores. When you know who you are, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking to fit places that were never built for your fullness. You begin to move differently, steadier, quieter, aware that every step is sacred because it's aligned with who you were, always meant to be. The scripture written in the first letter of Peter, chapter 2, verse 9, declares, "But you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light." Those words are not a metaphor, they are your mirror. You are chosen, marked not by circumstance, but by calling. You carry a crown that cannot be taken, only ignored. And once you begin to see yourself the way heaven sees you, every lie loses its grip. There was a time when you defined yourself by what happened to you. The pain shaped your reflection. Rejection became your lens. You tried on identities like borrowed clothes, too big, too small, never quite fitting. But then the Spirit began whispering, "That's not you. You've always been more than your story, more than the mistakes, the misunderstandings, the moments that bent you. Those were seasons, not definition." Identity is not found, it's remembered. It's been written in eternity long before you were wounded by time. And now, as you walk through this unfolding rescue, heaven is restoring your memory. You are recalling who you were before fear began rewriting your name. Think of it like this: your true identity has always been a melody. The world tried to drown it out with noise, expectations, criticism, comparison, but heaven never stopped singing your original song. The restoration you feel now is simply the volume being turned back up. There's a story of a man who forgot who he was, not through sickness, but through sorrow. Life stripped him of titles and applause. And when the noise stopped, so did his sense of worth. One day, while walking in silence, he saw the reflection of the sky on still water. For the first time in years, he looked without judgment, and in that reflection, he saw not failure, but a fragment of the divine image. That moment changed him. He didn't recover his confidence, he recovered his identity. That's what God is doing for you. He's showing you yourself through his reflection. The more you look at him, the clearer you become. Identity in the kingdom doesn't start with what you do, it starts with what you carry. You've been carrying light since the beginning, even when you couldn't see it. The storms didn't put it out, they purified it. You're not here to imitate anyone else. You are the rare expression of God's intention that exists only once in eternity. Every fingerprint, every gift, every odd, beautiful imperfection, it's all intentional. You were sculpted, not stamped. Sometimes, rediscovering who you are feels like peeling layers of dust off a buried painting. It's slow, gentle, and sacred. You remove what time, trauma, and other people's opinions have added, until what remains is pure color, your divine design shining through again. And when that clarity returns, confidence follows, not arrogance, but alignment. You stop chasing validation because you've finally seen your value. Heaven's rescue always leads to recognition. Once you know who you are, the world can no longer convince you to be anything less. You no longer need to announce your worth. It's visible. It hums in your presence, like light beneath skin. Identity restoration is also forgiveness in disguise. To reclaim your true name, you must release the versions of yourself that survival forced you to become. The version that smiled while breaking, the one that hid to keep peace, the one that confused love with endurance. Thank them for keeping you alive. Then let them rest. The new you is not an edit, it's a resurrection. You are walking out of shadow into shape, out of echo into essence. Every step is revelation. Every breath, confirmation that heaven didn't just rescue your life, it restored your likeness. From this point forward, you'll notice something subtle but powerful. Peace follows you. Not the fragile kind that depends on silence, but the deep kind that anchors identity. Peace that says, I know who I am, and I know whose I am. End one. And that knowledge changes everything. You'll speak differently because you'll know your words carry weight. You'll love differently because you'll understand it's your nature, not your duty. You'll face storms differently because you'll remember that crowns don't fall off easily when they're anchored in purpose. You are no longer the lost one searching for meaning. You are the found one revealing it. Heaven calls your name not as correction, but as confirmation. The reflection in the mirror has changed. The eyes looking back no longer question if they are enough. They know. Battlefields do not always look like war zones. Sometimes they look like living rooms, like sleepless nights, like quiet thoughts that argue inside your chest. The greatest wars are often invisible, fought not with swords, but with choices. Every thought of doubt, every whisper of fear, every temptation to turn back is a field of battle. The scriptures remind us in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 20, verse 15, do not be afraid or discouraged because of this vast army, for the battle is not yours, but God's. End quote. Those words have carried soldiers, prophets, and broken hearts for centuries, and now they're being spoken again over you. You've learned by now that the war isn't around you, it's within you. It's the tension between trust and worry, between surrender and control. Heaven calls it transformation, the world calls it turmoil. But every conflict in your spirit is proof that something holy is being formed. There was a time when you thought peace meant the absence of war, but now you understand. Peace is not the absence of battle, it's the assurance of victory before it begins. Every prayer you've whispered during conflict has been a weapon. Every moment you refused to retaliate. Every time you chose silence instead of bitterness. Every breath you took when anxiety screamed, that was warfare. You were winning in ways no one could see. If your heart feels tired, it's because warriors rarely rest until they realize the war has already been won. And you are standing in that revelation now. There's a scene heaven never tires of watching. A child of God rising from the ground, dirt on their hands, fire in their eyes. You've been knocked down. Yes, but you've also learned that getting up is an act of defiance against despair. You've faced storms that stripped you bare, words that wounded deep, seasons that tried to erase your identity. Yet here you stand, heart still beating, light still burning. That's what victory looks like in the kingdom, standing when everything else has fallen. Picture a valley at dawn, mist rolling through fields of battle where the night was fierce. The silence afterward is heavy, but not hopeless. In that stillness, you can almost hear heaven breathe a sigh of relief. The war within you is calming. The armies of doubt are retreating. What remains is clarity, a sense that you no longer have to fight for control, because the outcome was decided long before the first blow landed. You've been learning the art of holy warfare, the kind fought through prayer, patience, and peace, the kind that leaves no casualties, only revelations. There was a time when you thought winning meant shouting louder or pushing harder. But the greatest victories often come in whispers, in moments when you surrender and say, God, this is yours now. No, that surrender is not weakness, it's strategy. Heaven moves through yielded hearts. You've probably noticed that not all battles end with noise. Some end quietly. When the weight you've carried suddenly lifts, when the tears dry before you realize they stopped, when laughter comes back after months of silence, those are signs the war is over. But every battle leaves marks, scars, lessons, and strengths you didn't have before. Don't hide them. They are proof of process, proof that you've been trusted with fire and survived it. The field you once crawled through in pain will one day bloom under your feet in victory. When others see ruins, heaven says training ground. What broke you yesterday built endurance for tomorrow. What the enemy meant for destruction became the soil where your faith took root. You've been forged in pressure, polished by perseverance. That's why peace feels heavier. Now it's not fragile. It's fortified. This field of battle has become holy ground. The place that once held fear now hosts glory. The very soil that drank your tears will soon grow testimony, and as you walk through it now, there's no need to carry your sword. The war is shifting. You've proven what needed to be proven. You've shown that your heart belongs to light. Heaven doesn't measure victory by how loud the celebration is. It measures it by how completely peace fills the space afterward. And peace has finally filled yours. So, stand still for a moment. Look around your inner battlefield. Notice how quiet it has become. The chaos has ended. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You're no longer fighting to prove your worth. You're living from it. The field of battle has turned into a field of grace, and grace never loses. You felt the tension shift. The weight that once sat heavy on your shoulders has begun to lift, not all at once, but like dawn breaking across the horizon. slow, and golden. The rescue that was once promised has arrived, not with trumpets or thunder, but with peace. This is the moment heaven whispered about the moment of rescue. In the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7, it is written, "The Lord is good, a refuge in trouble. He cares for those who trust in him." Those words are not distant comfort, they are living truth. You have become the evidence of them. Every time you thought you'd drown, the hand of grace reached beneath the waves and lifted you. Every time you thought it was over, mercy whispered, "Not yet. Longed. Now." You are standing in that mercy. The storm has not disappeared, but it no longer defines you. The noise has not stopped, but it no longer owns you. Heaven has fulfilled its word. You have been rescued. But divine rescue is not a single event. It's a revelation. It isn't about escape, it's about arrival. You've been delivered from darkness into understanding, from fear into faith, from exhaustion into purpose. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a field, still damp from rain. The air carries that fresh, earthy scent that only comes after a storm. The clouds above are breaking apart, revealing soft streaks of light. The ground beneath your feet is firm again, and as you breathe, you realize the storm didn't destroy the field. It watered it. That's what heaven's rescue feels like. The very thing that threatened you has become the thing that nourished you. You can sense the world looking different now. Colors seem brighter. Air feels lighter. You are no longer fighting the current, you're flowing with it. The rescue is not pulling you out, it's propelling you forward. There's a quiet gratitude rising inside you, not the loud kind that needs to shout, but the deep kind that whispers, "Thank you." That's how heaven knows you understand. Gratitude is the language of the rescued. And now, this story you've lived, this unfolding of grace is not meant to stay hidden. It was never just for you. Heaven doesn't rescue one person to end the story. It rescues one to begin another. Somewhere, someone is standing in the same storm you survived, waiting for proof that rescue is real. Your voice is that proof. Your story is that signal fire. The light that now surrounds you isn't just for your comfort, it's for their direction. And maybe that's what it means to like a message of faith, not to agree out of habit, but to quietly press your hand over your heart and say, "I feel this. I see myself here." It's a sacred nod to heaven, a gesture that says, "This word touched home." And maybe that's what it means to share, not merely forwarding a post, but becoming a living ripple of hope. When you share, you're saying, "I won't keep my rescue silent. If it reached me, it can reach you." Like light bouncing off a mirror, the reflection travels farther with every heart it touches. And perhaps this is what it means to subscribe, not to a voice, but to a journey. It's choosing to stay connected to the flow of truth that keeps awakening your spirit. It's whispering, "I want to keep walking in this rhythm of rescue." And finally, comment something that comes from your heart. It doesn't have to be perfect or poetic, just real. Maybe it's gratitude. Maybe it's one line of hope. Maybe it's your own declaration of faith. Whatever you write becomes part of the chorus of those rescued, those rising, those remembering that grace still works. This is not pressure, it's participation. Like standing in a field of candles and lighting one more flame, you are simply adding your light to the story of deliverance. The rescue was never just heaven reaching down, it was heaven and you meeting halfway. Your response, your openness, your willingness to keep believing, that was part of the miracle. So take this moment, this gentle peace, and let it mark you. Let it remind you that every tear, every prayer, every trembling step was worth it. You are proof that heaven still moves, that grace still descends, that light still wins. And somewhere, even now, heaven leans closer, smiling not because you were perfect, but because you were willing. You made it. You're free. You are the rescue story. After rescue comes quiet, not the silence of emptiness, but the stillness of restoration. It's the pause after the storm, the breath between endings and beginnings. This is what the afterglow of glory feels like. Soft, steady, sacred. You are not rushing anymore. You are resting. The book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, declares, being confident of this, he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion in Christ. That truth hums beneath your skin now. What began in struggle is maturing in peace. The same hand that pulled you from the depths is now shaping you in the light. Rescue was only the beginning. Glory is the continuation. Everything around you seems different because everything within you has changed. You no longer crave noise to feel alive. You've learned that peace is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of alignment. You can feel heaven's rhythm pulsing through ordinary hours, in the laughter of friends, in the warmth of sunlight, in the simple act of breathing without fear. It's as if the world is whispering back to you. You made it through. Leo, you carry something new now. Not just gratitude, but radiance. It's the subtle kind of light that doesn't shout for attention, yet fills every room you enter. People may not understand what's different, but they'll feel it, the calm authority of someone who's walked with fire and returned with flame. There's a story about Moses descending from the mountain, his face shining after speaking with God. He didn't even know he glowed. The encounter itself had changed him. That's what's happening to you. You don't need to announce your transformation. It will announce you. The afterglow of glory is not about spectacle, it's about presence. You're learning to live from fullness instead of searching for it. In this new peace, even the smallest moments carry eternity's fragrance. The taste of morning coffee becomes communion. The sound of rain becomes worship. The rhythm of your steps feels like prayer. You've begun to understand that holiness isn't a place, it's awareness. And with that awareness comes tenderness. The fire didn't just make you strong, it made you gentle. You notice pain in others more quickly, but you also carry healing in your voice. You know what despair feels like, and you know the sound of deliverance. You've become a safe place for those still searching for peace. This is what heaven calls maturity, not perfection, but reflection. The closer you walk with light, the more you resemble it. You used to think glory was a flash, a burst of miracle and awe, but now you know its consistency. Glory is the steady glow that follows endurance. It's what remains when the shouting stops and only faith stands. Think of the earth after rainfall, the way colors appear sharper, air smells cleaner, and even the ground seems to exhale. That's your spirit. Now, the storms of testing have washed away the dust of doubt, leaving behind the scent of renewal. You are becoming who you always were beneath the noise, calm, courageous, clothed in quiet strength. And in that stillness, heaven begins to entrust you with more, not tasks, but presence. You'll find yourself being drawn to moments that matter, to comfort someone at the perfect time, to speak a word that unlocks another's hope. The glory resting on you is not ornamental, it's functional. It serves love. Every scar has turned to story, every bruise to wisdom. You're not haunted by memory anymore, you're guided by it. What once was pain is now perspective. And here's the most extraordinary part. This peace doesn't isolate you, it connects you. You've discovered the rhythm of grace that binds heaven and earth together, a harmony that sings through ordinary living. You're beginning to see how everything, every heartbreak, every healing was woven into this quiet brightness you now carry. You've become what the scriptures call a living testimony, not through sermons or grand gestures, but through steady light. People won't always ask what changed. They'll simply feel safer near you. They'll sense heaven's afterglow in your presence. And when you rest your head tonight, know this: the work isn't over, it's unfolding. The glory that found you will keep expanding, like ripples from a single drop in eternal waters. Every breath, every kind word, every moment of peace adds to it. You are no longer just surviving redemption, you are radiating it. The afterglow isn't something you carry, it's something you've become. There is a holy quiet that comes when everything has been said, when every battle has found its ending, and every prayer has turned into breath. You are standing in that sacred stillness now, the final movement of rescue, the resting place of revelation. This is the eternal marking, the moment heaven writes your name in light and calls it finished. The scriptures record in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 12, "The one who is victorious I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which is coming down out of heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name." That promise is not far away, it's happening now. The eternal marking is not a distant future, it's the present seal upon your spirit. You have been written into eternity's story, engraved not with ink, but with light. What God has marked, no darkness can erase. You can feel it if you pause long enough, the gentle hum of destiny resonating through your soul. It's not dramatic, not loud, but deep, like a quiet current under calm water. You are no longer reaching for belonging, you are rooted in it. Heaven doesn't just know your name, it calls your name with delight. For so long, you measured yourself by effort, by progress, by what you could prove. But now, you understand, being chosen isn't about earning, it's about embodying. You have become what grace always intended you, to be a living reflection of divine endurance. There's an image that fits this moment. Picture a craftsman finishing a masterpiece. He wipes away the last dust, steps back, and smiles. The sculpture isn't raw anymore, it's refined. Every mark, every curve, every imperfection now tells the story of process. The hands that once carved pain have carved purpose. That's what heaven is doing now, admiring the work it has shaped in you. You are the finished art of every unanswered prayer, every faithful wait, every tear that fell in silence. None of it was wasted. You carry on your skin the fingerprints of the Creator who refused to give up on you. The eternal marking is not a brand of ownership, It's a signature of love. It means you belong not as a possession, but as a promise. You are heaven's testimony, walking the earth as proof that redemption is not theory, it's truth embodied. And now, as this story comes full circle, you'll begin to see that the rescue was never random. Every thread connects. Every delay had timing. Every silence carried instruction. What once felt fragmented now reveals itself as intricate design. You've crossed through wilderness and fire, through waiting and breaking, through doubt and surrender, and every step has been holy. Heaven doesn't erase the past. It redeems it until it shines. The places you once avoided will one day feel sacred because they became the soil of your transformation. There's a phrase whispered among angels when a chosen one reaches this point. The mark is set, the mission begins. Because rescue isn't retirement, it's rebirth. The eternal marking doesn't end your story. It sends you into the world carrying light that will never dim. You'll start to notice how naturally grace flows through you now. How words of peace fall from your lips without effort. How people lean in closer when you speak. Not because of volume, but because of weight. The weight of someone who's seen heaven move. You are not who you were when this began. You have become foundation, anchor, and flame. You've learned to hold storms without breaking, to love without conditions, to see without fear. That's what eternity's mark looks like on a human soul. Steady, sure, shining. If you could see your reflection in the spirit right now, you'd see light woven through your being, like veins of gold through stone. You are living proof that what God begins, He finishes. You are the echo of every promise fulfilled. And so, as the final words settle like feathers in the air, let this truth rest deep in you. You are not passing through the presence of God. You are part of it. The same light that found you now flows through you. The mark isn't on your skin, it's in your spirit. It glows when you forgive, when you speak truth, when you simply exist as grace made visible. You are sealed. You are sent. You are the living continuation of a story. Heaven began long ago, a story that ends only in glory. The light fades softly now, not in ending, but in completion. What began as a whisper has become a journey, a sacred unfolding of faith, fire, and revelation. You've walked through the call, the countdown, the breaking, the rescue, and the restoration. And here you are, standing in peace that no storm can steal. You've heard heaven's voice and felt its rhythm in your own heartbeat. You've seen how mercy moves quietly through chaos and how light always wins, even when shadows try to linger. What you carry now is not just inspiration, it's inheritance. You are part of something bigger, something eternal, something alive. So, before this moment closes, let gratitude rise. Let it speak softly but surely. Maybe you feel it as a sigh, maybe as a smile. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you recognize this. You have changed. You are no longer reading someone else's message. You are living your own miracle. And if this journey touched you, if a word here found its way into your heart, if a line brought peace when you needed it most, then let that gratitude breathe. Like this, as a quiet act of acknowledgement, a way of saying, this word met me, share it. Not because you must, but because someone else might be standing where you once were tired, waiting, hoping for a sign that heaven still sees them. Let your light be the sign. And if this voice felt like home, If you want to stay close to the flow of words that remind you who you are, then subscribe, not as routine, but as rhythm, as a way of staying in the current of grace that continues long after this message ends. Finally, leave a comment, anything your heart wants to say, a word of thanks, a phrase of hope, or even just your name, because your voice is part of this divine chorus now. A reminder that heaven still speaks through ordinary hearts like yours.